All right. So I just did this recording and messed up because the internal mic wasn't on. If you ever do one of these, you get a quick time and then built-in microphone. That's key. So what I'm going to do is look at the recording that I did earlier and just audio audit it. So we have like multiple levels of my desktop. It's very meta right now. But the point of this workshop is that the grant funding workshop right now that we're doing is to basically help you guys understand how to find grants and apply for them. And we're not requiring students to apply to these grants, but we do want you to understand the process of finding funders and finding requests for proposals, which we call RFPs. It will be looked upon favorably if you are applying for the Jeep/Everett grant. If you apply for an external grant and then attach a copy of it for the Everett grant. So that we can see that you're trying to get funding, that you're very serious, and it will definitely increase your chances of getting the Jeep or Everett grant because it is a competitive process. We have $30,000, but we have roughly around 30 students, some of which want $5,000 to $10,000, so we're going to have a process of fellows who evaluate the projects, blindly, not knowing who's necessarily applying for what, and based on the merits of the grants that you write. So definitely I encourage everybody with a strong partner and a strong project to apply for Jeep Everett grants because it's a great process. And learning how to grant write is something that is a huge skill. It's one of the most valued skill in the nonprofit sector, and it will be great for your future to learn how to do this as well. We are going to go over the Jeep RFP this coming Tuesday. And the good news is it's going to be a lot easier than it will be looking at some of these foundations and how they ask for funding. We'll be asking you for the basic elements of the proposal, just the same exact elements in the same order as we did last quarter. The only new thing will be some word limits, but it won't be very tricky. But some of these external grants are different, so that's where we're going to be from that. So I'm skipping ahead. So funders, there's a couple of different ways to find funders. One is to look up funders of organizations similar to yours. And that's something that Ronnie covered last quarter, and I'm not going to really cover in this series because I think it is one of the more difficult ways to find foundations and funders, and it doesn't always work. But there's a couple of other ways you can find funders. For example, I have created a potential student funders database from grants that we've applied for in the past. And I haven't clicked on all of these to see if they're funding this year, what the deadline is, anything like that. But I have written the name of the grant at the top, the funder if I know it, the requirements or description of the grant if I know it, the amount, contact information, and website. The website being one of the more important parts for you to look at. And if any of these have names that fit something that you're working on, some of them aren't totally clear, obviously, but if you think, for example, Do Something Awards, Awesome Foundations, those apply to most people's grants. Venice Neighborhood Community Council, that's only if you want to do something in Venice. So you have to look at the name. And one of the other things that's on here is one grant database that I found, which most of them cost money, and so that's why we've created this free one for you to use. And in the past, sometimes we've paid for those grant databases. But this grant database, if you scroll to the website here and click on it, if I could get it up, there it is. just has a list of different grants that you can apply for. These ones have deadlines, but they've all passed. And some of these may or may not be useful, but you can look at the description and see what it's for. A couple of these grants are also on the grant database. For example, the Do Something Awards, $500 to young social entrepreneurs under the age of 25. And so you might want to look at both. And then you can click on it and go to the grant funding website, which I'll just do for Do Something so you see what it looks like. So yeah, they have different campaigns on Do Something, and you have to make your grant fit their different campaigns. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because I think you guys can do that. So I think I covered the main ways to find funders other than just Google searching. So one of the key ways to find funders, if you don't find something in the grant database or this online grant database that fits what you're working on, and you didn't find good funders last quarter that are still applicable, is you can look just by searching grant, for example, grants for autism. I'll just use it as an example and see the different grants that are here. Excuse me. So these are different grants. Another interesting way to do it is to look by state, because a lot of grants are for states or counties. So you look within a particular state, maybe writing it out. California would help me not have Pennsylvania show up there. And then you can go through the different resources. And you may also want to look for mini grants, which is a category right now that's pretty popular. It can be written in a couple of different ways. And those tend to be smaller grants that are between, a couple $100 to $10,000. And those are exactly the right size of grants for you guys to apply for. I don't recommend applying for anything more than $50,000. Even more than $10,000 is a lot for a first-time project from a student. But some of you may have really great project ideas, and I'm not totally discouraging you, but I'm letting you know that something under $10,000 is definitely more likely for you to get. And a lot of the times, the mini grants, they have smaller amounts of money that they give to more people in more groups. So that's always better than a one-time grant that's $20,000 and many people are applying for. So after you Google search and you find a funder, the next part of your assignment that is due this week is to write out the questions for an RFP. So let me just look at the assignment this week. This is how I see it because I have it in an instructor view, but your assignment has two parts. You have to find 3 potential extramural, just external funding sources for your project. You can have one UCSC fund, but all the others must be external granting bodies, not personal funds or grant funds. And they must basically be foundations, and we want this information. You can include information, as I said, that you found last quarter if it's still relevant, if you did it correctly. And you want to put this in there. So the second part of it is the request for proposals, the actual questions they're asking that you apply for. And we want you to do this so that you know how to do it and that you're all set up to actually write one of these if you want to. But again, you don't have to actually answer the questions. You just need to show that you found them. So there's a couple of ways that RFPs are put online, and I'm going to show you these so that you can see what they look like. So in every community, there's a community council and a community foundation. And that's another great way to find grants, is to search for community council or community foundation and your particular county usually. So Santa Cruz. Find this. This is a great granting body for local projects, and it's one of the ones that students have gotten in the past is local foundation grants. Sometimes they'll request a letter of intent, which is like a cover letter before you can get their RFP. And sometimes they will just put the RFP on the account. So the way you find it, look at the different options. I went to nonprofits, I went to grants, and here they have their information about their different grants. You can find out if you're eligible, which I encourage you to do. You can find out about their interest areas, which are these different areas, types of support they offer, and what they don't fund, which is key to figuring out whether you can apply or not. And this is what you should put when I ask for restrictions for the different funders. Yeah, and there's also a eligibility and restrictions segment that you can just copy and paste into a document. So they do have these different grants here, and you can look at the different grants and see their application guidelines. Sometimes their application guidelines will include their questions. But it looks like here they asked for letters of intent, so also called LOIs, that were due, and that is why they do not have their RFP listed on their site. However, if you're from a different county, I encourage you to search Community Foundation and your county and see if in your particular county the RFPs are year-round. It differs from county to county. You can also search for foundations that are city-based, like there's San Francisco foundations or different foundations for cities, or arts councils. So this is the Art Council, and I actually already have a login. So sometimes you'll get to a website, a main site, and it'll ask you to log in to create an online profile and get access to their online RFP. So just so you see what that process is like, because you will need to get onto the online system in order to get the RFP information. I'm signing in. I use this for my work with the Watsonville Film Festival, so that is why it is here. Sorry, let me try again. It's refusing me. Finally. Same thing, but for some reason let me in. So now I'm on my online system, and they have these different grants to apply for. I'm going to go to my data because I already have clicked on some of these because I was testing it out before I started recording, and their particular system kind of looks funny, but this is one of the applications that I was using. So, for example, this entire application is online, so you see they have boxes for everything. I don't know why that E has a thing on top of it. But basically, you will not have to put in all of these questions for this assignment. The key thing are the actual questions that are kind of more narrative. So the questions that this Art Council RFP is asking is for project summary, and it also gives 250 character limit. So for your assignment, basically what you want to do is include these questions and the different limits. For example, just like this. This could be exactly what you do for your assignment. It's just list the different questions and the word limit. So there was a project summary. I would just literally copy that. That is a question. And the word limit, which is 250. My formatting is all weird. 250. And you don't have to answer the question, as I said. I'm going to save and continue. And then these are where the other main questions are. So they're going to ask me in explaining my development as an artist, the activity for which I'm seeking, and how to advance my growth to becoming a professional artist. So that's something that is nothing like anything we asked in the Jeep RFP, so that would require you, if you were applying for this and you had some artistic elements to your proposal, to come up with that. I also encourage you to answer any optional questions if possible, and to definitely record the character limit, because ideally you're going to be mostly applying for these online, and I write the character limit so I can fill in information and then go into tools, word count, and see how much I have. Because if you use these boxes, you will just, it tells you how many characters remain sometimes, but you will just be not allowed to continue. So that's one form. Some other types of grants, for example, this one will allow you to just click to download the application. Sometimes it's written RFP, sometimes it's written application. You click to download the application, which is in MS Word, and you basically get all of the questions for this grant. And you, again, don't have to put all your contact information, that's standard, but the actual questions, for example, describe your project, how does this fill a community need, what are the project goals. You can see that these are very similar to the questions that you already answered in your project proposal, but sometimes they may ask certain things. What is your publicity and outreach plan? How often will youth leaders meet to make this project a reality? These specific questions you may have to address. And it's good to obviously, record all of this so that you know how you have to tweak your proposal that you wrote last quarter in order to fit this particular RFP. So again, I would copy all of those questions. You only have to do the questions for one RFP for the assignment. Lastly, I just want to show you really quick that sometimes you will get to a website that has an RFP. This is one of them. That for whatever reason, when you actually click to apply for the RFP for the Honda Foundation, gives you a bunch of information, community gift program. And if you want to start your online application, you have to click here, which is where I was before, and then you have to go through their different questions. So it'll ask you, are you a 501c3 nonprofit? And if you are applying for any of these and you get Jeep's approval, you will get Jeep's proof of being a nonprofit, so you can go ahead and click yes, especially to get the different information. Do we have religious or political affiliations? No. And then you can kind of get access into their RFP. So I apologize, some of these websites are a little out of place because I actually, again, did this recording already. But hopefully this is helpful and helps you do your assignment. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions. And I hope you learned a little bit about how to find funders and also how to find the questions for the RFP and put them in a document so that you can work on them if you decide to go for any of these. And I hope you have a good rest of your strike day and see you next week.